Welcome back to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation of Mashiach ben David, Messiah, the son of David. Today we'll be looking at Tractate Chullin, page 71b, top of the page with the words Adam shematzil al tuma shebetocho militameh. Adam shematzil al tuma shebetocho militameh eno din shematzil al tuma shebetocho militameh. When a person, then with regard to a person who does shield the impurity of a piece of a corpse contained within him from imparting impurity to other items in the same tent, as the Gemara derived above, is it not logical that he shields a pure item contained within him from being rendered impure? The Gemara challenges the inference. What is notable about an earthenware vessel? It is notable in that it cannot become impure through a source of impurity coming in contact with its exterior. Can you say then that it is comparable to a person who can become impure through a source of impurity coming in contact with his exterior? Since here the halachot concerning impurity of a person are more stringent than those concerning an earthenware vessel, one cannot apply to a person a leniency with regard to an earthenware vessel. Atu anan migabo kamrinan mitocho kamrinan. A more response, is that to say we are speaking of rendering an item impure through a source of impurity coming in contact with its exterior? We are in fact speaking of where the impurity comes into contact with its interior. For such cases, it is reasonable to compare the case of a person with an earthenware vessel. The Gemara adds, on the contrary, the contraction of impurity by an earthenware vessel is more stringent than that of a poison, as it becomes impure through the presence of a source of impurity in its airspace. Even if the source does not touch the vessel itself, by contrast, a person is rendered impure from a source of impurity in his airspace. For example, in his mouth, only if it actually touches him and the a fortiori inference remains valid. Ashkachan balua dimilmala balua dilmata minala kal v'chomer ma lemala shein rois ikul matzi lemata shois ikul in adin shematzi. The Gemara asks, we found a source for the halakha that an impure item encapsulated in a body that entered from above, meaning through the mouth, does not impart impurity. From where do we derive that an impure item encapsulated in a body that entered it from below, meaning from, okay, well, we won't say, also does not impart impurity? The Gemara answers, it is derived through a kal v'chomer. And if, when a person, impure item, enters from above, meaning the mouth, it is a place that does not digest the food, the body nevertheless shields the impure item from imparting impurity, then with regard to a case where the impure item enters from below, which is a place that does digest the food, is not logical, which is a place that does digest food. It's not really true. The mouth, in science, we learned that the chewing is the first stage of digestion. So it's not really such a clear kal v'chomer, but okay. So they say that it does digest the food, and once you put it in the rear end, that's not digesting there. It's already, that's the last stage. It doesn't digest food. If you put it in the rear, it's not going to make it, even if it makes its way up, it has to go through the intestines, and it has to go to the stomach. I mean, it's not really digesting in there. The intestines don't really digest it. It just goes through those tubes. All right. Klum oisei ikul lamata ela ayidi mala The Gemara challenges the basis of the inference. Isn't digestion performed below only by means of chewing and digestive functions of the body above? Kind of like what I was asking. The Gemara explains, even so, the digestion performed below is greater than that performed above. I don't think so. Anyway, Ashkecham Balua the Adam Balua Behem Minalan. Mikal Kalvachoim Mirma Adam Shemitame Echaim Matzil Bevalua Behem Shein Matame Chaim and Dinchamasul Bevalua. The Gemara asks, we found a source for the halacha that an impure item encapsulated in the body of a person does not impart impurity. From where do we derive that an impure item encapsulated in the body of an animal does not impart impurity? The Gemara answers, it is derived through an a fortiori inference. If the body of a person who can impart impurity even while he is still alive, for example, if he is a leper or a zav, nevertheless shields the impure item encapsulated inside him from imparting impurity, then with regard to an animal which does not impart impurity while it is alive, is it not logical that it should shield an impure item encapsulated inside it from imparting impurity? Ma le'adam shekein tzarich shehio bebeis hamenuga tomar bevehema she'eno tzricho shehio bebeis hamenuga. The Gemara challenges the inference. What is notable about the impurity of a person? It is notable in that if he entered a leprous house in order for his garment to be rendered impure, he needs to remain in the leprous house for a minimal period of time. See Leviticus 14:33-53. Can you say then that is comparable to an animal which does not need to remain in a leper's house for a minimal period of time? Rather, any utensils placed upon it are rendered impure immediately upon its entry. Since here the halachot concerning impurity of an animal are more stringent than those concerning a person, one cannot necessarily apply to an animal a leniency with regard to a person. The Gemara responds, when it is stated about an animal that it does not need to remain in a leper's house for a minimal period of time, with regard to what halacha was that said, a living animal itself cannot be impure. Perforce, the statement is referring to utensils that are placed upon its back, and they are rendered impure immediately upon entry. But in this regard, there is no difference between animals and people. A person as well does not need to remain in the leper's house for a minimal period of time in order to render impure any utensils placed on his back. Rather, they are rendered impure immediately upon entry. It's not. הנכנס לבית המנוגה וחיל על כתפיו ושם עליו דבויס בידיו הוא המתם מיד הלבוש כלוב ושם עליו לרגלו ודבויס באצבעוי הוא תומם מיד והן תחוירין עד שישו בכדי אכילס פס חיתים ולא פס שעוירים beisav oichel beliftan. This is, as we learned in the Mishnah, Negaim 13:9, with regard to one who enters a leper's house with his clothes resting on his shoulders, but who is not wearing them in the normal manner, and his sandals and his rings are in his hands, both he and they, the clothes, sandals, and rings, are rendered ritually impure immediately. If he was dressed in his clothes, and his sandals were on his feet, and his rings were on his fingers, he is rendered impure immediately upon entering the house, but they, the clothes, sandals, and rings, remain pure until he remains in the house for the time it takes to eat a half loaf of bread. This calculation is made with wheat bread and not with barley bread, which takes more time to eat than wheat bread. In addition, the calculation is made with regard to one who is reclining and eating the bread together with a relish usually consumed with bread, which hastens the eating. Amaravit Ravayu Tinani Tuma Belua Teneno Tahara Belua Tenena. Rabbah stated above that an encapsulated impure item cannot impart impurity, and that an item that is ritually pure, that is encapsulated within another body, cannot be rendered impure. Rabbah said, why is this statement necessary? We learn both halachot and Mishnah. We learn about an encapsulated impure item, and we learn about an encapsulated pure item. Tuma belua titnan bala tebas tmeo tuvad oichel betrumaso hekio tmeo betumato. Rav elaborates with regard to an encapsulated impure item. The halacha is as we learned in Mikvaot 10:8. If someone swallowed a ring that was impure due to having been in contact with a corpse, he is thereby rendered impure. To render himself pure, he immerses, and then he may partake of his truma, despite the fact that the impure ring is still inside him. The reason this is permitted is that since the ring is encapsulated inside the person's body, it cannot impart impurity. If he vomited out this ring, it remains impure, as it was not purified by his immersion, and therefore it renders him impure upon its exit from his body. Tara belua tanina tetnan bala tabas toiro v'nichnas le'ohel hameis v'hi zoi v'shona v'tova l'hikiyo harei hi kamo shehois. Likewise, we learn the halacha that an encapsulated pure item cannot be rendered impure, as we learn in the same Mishnah, Rikvaot 10:8. If one swallowed a ritually impure ring and then entered a tent containing a corpse, thereby contracting impurity, and then, in order to render him pure, someone sprinkled upon him the water that is mixed with the ashes of the red heifer, once on the third day and again on the seventh day as required, and then he immersed, thereby completing the purification process, and then he vomited out the ring. The ring is pure as it always was, meaning it was not rendered impure from the corpse. The Gemara answers the cases in the Mishnah concern the possibility of imparting impurity from the ring to the body within which it is contained, and vice versa. But when Rabbah was speaking, he was referring to imparting impurity from one item to another where both are contained together inside a body, such as where a person swallowed two rings, one impure and one pure, and they came in direct contact with one another. Rabbah taught that even in this case, the impure ring does not render the pure ring impure.